Animation is something amazing. The way we can tell stories that we couldn't always tell, bringing to light the images we hold in our head, the wacky, funny, loving, and deep. They might not always be able to be captured in traditional cinema. I've always been a fan of animation, growing up on anime and Pixar, Disney, the lot. The stories I was able to see, the different locations, the absurdity of He-Man, the fast combat of Naruto, and furthermore into my teenage years with films like Ratatouille and Akira. The strange comparison, but it helped show me that these stories could be told in a medium that just couldn't be replicated with film, and it brought a sense of wonderment and just anything was possible in this medium. I grew up wanting to do filmmaking, and I have done through my teenage years and into university, and then the pandemic hit and everyone was locked indoors. Industry took a massive hit, and what did everyone do? They pulled up Netflix, they gathered everyone close and watched the films that they loved, films that inspired them. Perhaps they finally got to the list of films they'd always said they'd watch, but maybe they tried new ones, and it was the same for me. I picked up the remote and found some films I never thought I'd watch before. It brought me back into the light of animation. The growth of YouTube helped to show the achievements of other people's animated shorts and how they could just upload it online and gather a following. And it inspired me. I wanted to start myself, and then I hit the wall of, well, how do I start? A lot of guides from people online were from people who had already made it in the industry and are working in the industry, but how do you start? I remember a time when I picked up the guitar and learning the chords and a few songs and hitting the wall, the skill barrier, so to speak. I never overcame it. To this day, my guitar sits in my room just waiting to be played, begging. And that made me wonder, would I be able to learn animation? Is it even possible? Well, that's what this is for, so buckle your seatbelt and listen to me talk about my journey of creating my first ever piece of animation. I gave myself a deadline to produce something that just had to be something, anything. I'm a bit of a perfectionist and quite stubborn in how I make things, and given the self-high expectations with little knowledge on animation, it turned out to be a detriment to my outcome, but I won't fully spoil that just yet. It started with a concept. What style should the type of animation be? 2D? 3D? It overwhelmingly became a problem very soon. There was so much choice and so little that I knew about animation that I had to just dig down and start researching. I looked into what available options there were, took the time to see different programs, softwares, what they offered and what people had made from them, and this inspired my creative brain. Sites like OpenToons and Toon Boom Harmony were some of the first I came across, and having a love for 2D animation, I really wanted to give it a shot. The shot was sort of short-lived. The software was super accessible. OpenToons being a great tool for people wanting to learn drawn frame animations. Being an open source software, it's free, anyone can do it. While Toon Boom is an industry standard, it's brought modern classics such as Rick and Morty. While on a student's license, it was super cheap and affordable to use, though I know not everyone's a student. However, practicing on these softwares, I just wasn't getting the look that I envisioned in my head. It just wasn't being replicated in the proverbial paper, and admittedly I was a little too stubborn to move from something which didn't have legs. I was too hard stuck trying to bash my way through the project that I didn't realise I was losing time. I spent too long and realised that the deadline I gave myself was slowly coming up, so I looked to 3D, something that I never thought I'd look towards, but it was always glaring me in the face. I wish I'd known from the beginning to have a clear, decisive plan and to lower my expectations, because this is my first project and it's never going to be amazing, going to be wonky, janky, but sometimes that's the charm of animation and you have to start somewhere. If I had a bit more time, probably the outcome could have been better, but this is what I had. I finally sat down on one concept and stuck with it. Cinema 4D was the choice I chose because I was able to get 6 months through on a student license. It was a bit of a no-brainer, but everything I did could have been done on the open source engine Blender. It follows a lot of the same things, but it's free. Story is key, and coming from a filmmaker's background, I wanted to make sure that I had a story. I got hung up on the story a lot, maybe more than I should have. I decided after a lot of failed ideas and overestimations of what I could actually produce on so many different ideas, from a cyberpunk scene to a man hiding on his bed from the floor being lava, but I decided on a moody Roman scene of a lone man pleading for his life on the blank stone faces of some deity and God smiting him for his sins. I just felt this spoke to me in an intriguing sort of way of, why is the man there? What did he do to face this punishment? When was this set? And I feel like that intrigue helps bring a viewer in, and for a short scene it sort of encapsulates you and creates this world where you sit and think about what's going on. And then with my concept, and then I found myself on a blank Cinema 4D screen. I set myself to work, finally focusing on a single project, learning how things work, creating an object, how that object moves in the 3D space, how to move myself in the 3D space, learning how to grow objects, how to change them, edit them, discovering plugins that assisted my workflow. I came across a guide from Blender Guru, a YouTuber, on productions and his workflow, and he spoke about how people in the field utilize each other's assets and create new art utilizing assets such as displacement map, textures. It helps make the workflow quicker and helps build your fundamentals and your overall learning and confidence within a program, so that when you come to specific tasks, you can go into it a bit more depth because you understand how the program works. And I felt this was some good advice that maybe you guys should undertake too, is just try with as much learning assistance as you can, so that when you come to the next time you do a project, you can really create something new. Sites like Quixel Megascans and Imogen FX really helped me in learning about texturing, smoke and fire simulation, the ins and outs of how they work and how to utilize them, so that maybe in my next project I can create some of my own textures, and that's something really engaging and something really exciting. And these things help create realism in my scene, bring the scene to life, and without these little tips and tricks I wouldn't have known that. And hopefully I can impart this onto you on how these tricks can help you. It can seem like it maybe bypasses a lot of the work and time that goes into modeling a scene, bringing a scene to life, but that's the beauty of it, just how accessible animation can be. It's doable. Through the hard work and the graft of the production process, I was able to create a scene, working through the displacement map, the failed ideas, the stressful cries at the computer why I couldn't get something to work. I had a scene. I had my Roman theme, a man standing among statues of a supposed deity, and the statues setting him alight as the sun peers over the ridges of a distant canyon. I did it. I made something with a few days before my given deadline. I was so happy. And then I hit render, and that's when I learned I wasn't great at timekeeping on this project. 5 days to render the project. If I hadn't set a deadline to this project, that probably would have been fine, but I wanted to stick by the goal of finishing it on the time I gave myself. And that's when I had to make some changes and let go of my high expectations to ensure the render completed on time. The correct settings were made, lowering the resolutions, the sample rates of the scene, and make the quality low enough so it can be rendered while keeping some of that detail. After 11 hours, it was made. 5 seconds. But it was my 5 seconds. I made it, and after a small amount of time of learning the program, it was mine, and that got me hooked. I can't wait to go and make my next project, and I hope this short little story can help inspire some of you to think twice about the industry. Maybe give it an attempt yourself, just make something, because who knows, maybe your new project will find a new avenue, your new story will have legs now because of 3D animation. And just make sure you've got enough time to render your projects so you can do a bit better than mine. So thank you for listening. Feel free to send me your renders in the email below, and I'd love to see what you make.